here in the fog of time long ago, living as one with this majestic land. For 10,000 years they were here. The Eyak were a tribe distinct in a language and culture from the neighboring Chugach Eskimos in the west, Tlingit tribes to the east, and the Athabascan tribes of the Copper River Basin to the north. The Eyak occupied lands in the southeastern corner of south-central Alaska. Their territory runs along the Gulf of Alaska from the Copper River Delta to Icy Bay. Oral tradition tells us that the Eyak moved down from the interior of Alaska via the Copper River or over the Bering Glacier. Until the 18th century, the Eyak more closely associated with their Athabascan neighbors to the north than the North Coast culture. Over time, the land of the Eyak became the crossroads of cultures. The Eyak people were ambassadors to many nations. They presided over the mixing point where the Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian, Athabascan, Alutiiq nations came together. Goods from far away came to their shores on huge cedar canoes, umiaks, and bidarkas. When men from outside came looking for gold, they brought with them new diseases that nearly wiped out the Eyak people. The survivors struggled to adapt to a new way of life. Commercial fishing, with its unpredictable ups and downs, became the dominant industry. One of the biggest downturns here came in the spring of 1989. When the Exxon Valdez was driven aground by a poorly trained crew in 1989, it hit the submerged rocks with such force that 11 of its 18 giant oil tanks were ripped open. The oil that poured from its belly became the largest oil spill in North American history. From the second the oil spill occurred, Prince William Sound would never be the same. A few years after, while Exxon was continuing its profitable business, the herring populations plummeted. The shutdown of the fishery blasted a gaping hole in the economy here. Suicides and bankruptcies were rampant. The fishermen sued Exxon for money they felt was owed to them. While Exxon did pay out millions to attempt to clean up the oil and restore Prince William Sound, the fishermen, who lost their livelihood, thought they should be fairly compensated as well. Exxon fought these claims tooth and nail in the courts. Times became so rough in Cordova that this little town once had the highest alcohol consumption per capita in the nation. Things were bleak. Eventually, the Eyak people, who had overcome so much, decided that enough was enough. 15 years ago, they began coming together to combat alcohol. The winds seemed to carry the call of the ancient ones, a call to gather together. It's time to come together to heal, to strengthen each other. Traditionally, a song was sung to mark the end of a long, hard journey by canoe. Today, The arrival is not on a rocky shore with the smell of the ocean and the sound of the surf, but under the crackling of fluorescent lights in a small airport terminal. The place may not be remarkable, but the spirit is, and the call and the song reaches back to those early days of welcome. The celebration is to move away from shame, to release the shame alcohol has brought to many here. Through days of dancing, singing, praying, talking, laughing, the people here are finding out who cares for them and who will support them in their time of need. And the answer is many. Each person here can look around at a room full of other people who share in their struggle and who know the answers to their questions. People who care. Special time was set aside to honor the many veterans in the group. George Ramos led the group in and delivered a special prayer that has been passed down for generations in his family.
My grandfathers, my uncles on my mother's side, we ask you to be with us this day. Whatever we are going to work for, let us accomplish it without any harm and without any injury. We ask this in your, my grandfather. Thank you.
Though some of these veterans had never met each other, they stood as one, honoring those that had fallen in the line of duty.
Home.
Memories of times long gone and struggles overcome fill the minds of those veterans. But the sobriety celebration is also a time for joy. Bob Hendricks, the man they call Moose, keeps the program running on time.
We're running on Indian time here, so we're going to try to start at 1 o'clock, but it'll be around then.
And Bob realizes the power of humor, asking each speaker to come prepared with a joke.
I guess I have to tell the joke. Bill doesn't know me. This Tlingit man and woman, elderly couple from southeast Alaska, were in Anchorage. They were walking down the street and an Eskimo kid came up to them and said, "Where are you guys from?" And the Tlingit woman couldn't hear very good, so she asked her husband, "What did he say?" "He wants to know where we're from. Are we from Southeast?" "Tell him yes, we're from Southeast." The Eskimo lad looked at him and said, "Are you guys Tlingit?" The lady said to her husband, "What did he say? He wants to know if we're Tlingit. Tell him yes. Yes, we're Tlingit." Eskimo guy said, "Did you guys go to Mount Edgecombe?" Tlingit lady said to her husband, "What did he say? He wants to know we went to Mount Edgecombe. Tell him yes. Yeah, we went to Mount Edgecombe." Eskimo guy says, "Yeah, I went to Mount Edgecombe too. Knew a lot of Tlingit people there. The women were really mean." The wife said to her husband, "What did he say?" The husband said to his wife, "He said he knows you."
For years after the arrival of outsiders, the ancient cultures of these lands slowly eroded away, They came very close to becoming extinct. But through the wisdom of the elders, culture survived. The Mount St. Elias dancers are an excellent example of that ancient culture roaring back to life.
I want to share the history of our group before we start. Traditionally, the Eyak area had 5 clans of traditional land ownership. There's 2 Raven clans and 3 Eagle clans covering 270 miles of coastal area. Each clan, they had their own songs, their own dances, and their own history. And they held on to those. That was their adu, that was some of their prized possessions. But as time went on, we started getting a little bit, I call it homogenized almost. By 1952, our culture started slipping away. Our language started slipping away. Our songs and dances, they were all slipping away. And the elders came together in Yakutat, and they decided, yeah, this is enough. This is enough that we can't speak our language. It's enough that the BIA says we can't practice our ceremonies because we're giving too much. So they started this group in 1952. They thought, when this drum, it ceases to sound on those mountains, on this land, those people are gone. I don't think that time will come anytime soon. So, without any further ado, we'll see if the Mount St. Elias dancers are here.
The sobriety celebration was also a chance to share some of the ancient traditions of the area with some of its newest residents.
You ever see a tribal house where the entrance of the hole was real small? You had to go in there like this. If you couldn't go in that way, then you had to dangling on this side. That was awkward. But there was a law in our country where they never bothered the women and the children. But you also couldn't burn their canoe or wreck it or their tribal houses. That sustained the village. That sustained that whole clan. And they put the women and children into the tribal houses. And you know what they gave them? They didn't give them knives or anything. They gave them clubs, like a good Louisville bat. When the warriors tried to come in the house like this, guess where they got hit? I didn't know. They learned real fast, huh? But they tried to sneak in this way. Guess where they got hit? So they didn't go in that house. But they also, part of the war, they didn't go to war. They'd go up there like with their knives and go. If they did that, just like paintball, huh? When you got shot, splat. You're out of the whole game, huh? But if the warriors came up and snuck up on you and went, whoosh, he was out of the game. Some of the wars were just like that. They didn't believe in taking life until it was very absolutely necessary. Then they went to war.
Another sign that the Eyak people are reclaiming their culture is inside this building. The Eyak Cultural Center opened in 2004 and is a showcase for Alaska's many native cultures.
Well, up here on the wall, we have some carvings from Jim Miller, who's here for the sobriety celebration. He's from Port Graham, and some beach grass baskets that are hand woven from the village of Kipnuk. One of our local tribal members, Darlene Nichols, is from Kipnuk, Alaska. So these are her relatives that have woven these grass baskets. And then the cedar bark baskets hand woven from one of our local community members, Rebecca Brewer.
The Eyak Center carved out space for Native artists to do their work and teach their craft to the next generation. Most Alaskans are familiar with totem poles, and one of the most striking objects in the cultural center is this shame pole. Its meaning goes deep. A shame pole is a traditional Tlingit way of showing the world that a wrong has been committed and a debt is owed. When the debtor repays or fixes the wrong, the pole is burned. After 18 years of fighting Exxon in court, the fishermen of Prince William Sound had their day in the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. The court found in their favor, but reduced the amount of money Exxon had to pay to a fraction of what the fishermen had asked for. Essentially, the court said Exxon should be punished, but not punished very much. With the legal challenge over and the devastated fishermen still not adequately compensated, Bob Hendricks decided it was time for a shame pole. He asked Mike Weber, a commercial fisherman and carver, to make the pole.
Well, it's pretty simple. When you ridicule somebody, you generally, traditionally put their face in upside down, and that shames that person. In this case, this is the Exxon CEO up there, and I put his face upside down. I put dollar signs in his eyes to show the greed. I put a long nose on this person so young kids could look at this person and figure out that he's a bad person. Pinocchio style knows that he's lying, and he lied to us. They lied from the very beginning to the very end. And when he speaks, I wanted to get this oil slick coming out of his mouth. Lee Raymonds came to Cordova 4 days after the oil spill, and he said, well, if you were lucky, it was Exxon that spilled the oil, because we promise we will make you whole again. So this is their famous quote. And these dollar signs I put on here represent different things. One of them was, I call it blood money, because what it did, fishermen generally are not very rich people. They tend to, if they have a good season, they rebuild their equipment, buy a new boat, buy new nets, or maybe a warehouse, someplace to store all their equipment. Well, a lot of people did this with the money that they made. And whatever they gained from the oil spill, it didn't take but 3 or 4 years before a lot of people lost it. A lot of people went bankrupt. A lot of people lost their boats, divorces, suicides. The story goes on and on. When I put these dollar signs on here, I painted it with my own blood, making a statement that I've worked hard my whole life. My dreams and my goals that I worked for, I was 29 at the time of the oil spill. And all those dreams and goals disappeared because of the devaluation of the boats permits and the herring fisheries and blood money. I call that blood money. This is the seine boat, and the seine boat was used for pink salmon and herring. So these nice boats that were valued at $600,000 to $700,000, they had insurance payments of $40,000 to $50,000 a year. A lot of these nice boats got put on blocks, and that's what these represent, are blocks. And boats were put at sale at bottom, low-end prices. And a lot of these boats were family-operated boats. And this is what this represents here, is a family, a father and a mother and the kids, and even a dog on the boat. So this is what happened to a majority of our nice boats. Prince William Sound, Cordova and Prince William Sound had a really nice commercial fishing fleet because we had the herring fishery and the salmon fishery.
It was a good fishery.
It was a good fishery, and at one point they owned like 70% of the herring permits. And what else? This part of the herring here represents what a healthy school of herring would look like. They're big in size and they're healthy. And as the oil spill happened, everything close to oil spill is dead. And here, the herring, as time went on, the herring got smaller, and then the herring got sick after the oil spill. They had lesions, and then the herring, mature herring, started dying off, and then we got left over with the juvenile herring, and we're still left with the juvenile herring almost 20 years later. We still have not had any fishery since 1993. Blind Justice. This symbol here is a Lady of Justice symbol. Put a blindfold on her, simply stating that the justice was blind. And to this symbol, they have scales on this Lady of Justice, and the scales tilting to one side with the bag of money in the law book, simply stating that Exxon was able to buy their way through the legal system. On our side, the plaintiff side of the scale, it was too hard to come up with a certain symbol to put in the scale, so simply we put the earth, and that represented the ecosystems, Mother Nature, and the people, the plaintiffs.
The rest in peace, what is that?
When I carved this pole, there was over 6,000 people that died, and when I carved this pole, in the 30 days it took me to carve it, 6 people died, and 3 of those people committed suicide and had here.
Oh my gosh.
And they've had, it was just so many years of depression and anger that it led to suicide. And this Tlingit style native person here is crying. This pole was carved for the 18th year, and on each side it has 9 tears on each side of the face, showing 18 tears for 18 years. When the bones stick out in the ribs, that generally means that this person is sick, ill, or dying, or dead. And with the hole here in the heart, it kind of goes with what Exxon said, we promise we will make you whole. Well, it's what it did. They put a hole in us, in our hearts.
Through the Yolonka Center and the Sobriety Celebration, people here are finding healthy ways to put the past behind, to heal, and look forward to a brighter future. Today's Eyak people, with their wonderful energy and their willingness to share, inviting dance groups and people from all over the area, they're carrying on one of their greatest strengths and one of their most precious possessions. With meetings like this, with healing hands and open hearts, the ancient people live on in today's people, charting the course for their next 10,000 years.